You can support this podcast for $3 a month at patreon.com/copytradersclub or find me on eToro, username Gavin Macaulay, and add me to a watch list for future content. Thanks for listening. Copytraders Club, where you can learn how to make better decisions and more money copy trading. I'm Gavin Macaulay, my name and username on eToro. My aim as an eToro enthusiast is to demystify this new and uncharted world of copy trading, understand what are the pitfalls and best practices, and how ultimately to succeed as a copy trader. Here we go. Yes, indeed. You're all very welcome to Copy Traders Club Series 3, Episode 15. And today we're crossing the pond to check in with American PI, Tom Holland. How's it going, Tom?
It's good. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're delighted to have you. How are things in New Jersey? What's the news from there?
It's good. Right now it's sunny. Nothing much going on. Nothing too crazy.
Okay, good stuff. All right, so you've been on before, and I will leave a link in the show notes to your first appearance when we got to know you. Spent over an hour talking about you and your approach to eToro. So you're back for the check-in, and
Yep.
It's this new and exciting format, StreamYard. So, as you know, I'm going to ask a load of randomly generated numbered questions. Some of them are about eToro, some are about investing, some are just to get to know you a little bit more. But why don't we start off with you generally telling us what you think of the state of the market, where things are going. You're a crypto PI, of course, so your answer is going to be heavily influenced that way, and
Yep.
with a view to the next halving cycle, presumably.
Yep.
Lay it all out for us.
Sure, yeah, sounds good. I mean, it's the markets are in a very interesting spot. I mean, some indicators, at least for the US, are saying we're in a recession, then they changed the definition. But then in terms of layoffs and everything else, we haven't really seen those. So, I mean, from what I'm aware, that's one of the main core drivers of a recession. So we'll see what happens if we're going to have, I don't even know if we should keep calling them black swan events at this point, how frequently they come every couple of months. Usually it was years, but I guess we're speed running it. In terms of crypto, it's an interesting situation just because with all of the banks getting bought out and collapsing, initially they were very crypto heavily focused. Either they were adjacent to crypto or they were in some way they were related to crypto. So that affected the crypto markets a lot, but relatively short-term effect, a couple of months. Overall, it looks like we're probably gonna uptrend for the next couple of months from now until the next halving event in April, approximately April, because no one knows exactly when it is, because it's a number of blocks that determines it, and that's just how fast transactions are being processed, which can vary depending on how many people are mining it. So there's a huge uptick in miners that could speed up, but it'll probably be somewhere in April. And historically, the 6 months prior to that, it's went up. And then I think the only exception for it going up like a year prior to that is I think it was a huge drop right when COVID happened, just before, where we had sort of a mini, very short burst recession. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but I'm expecting crypto in general to trend up. I mean, we're starting to see random meme coins with some silly names start shooting up, and Bitcoin's trending up in general. And then some of the larger, more notable cryptos that aren't Bitcoin but are still relatively large in market cap are sort of waiting to see what Bitcoin does, but they're trending up a little. They're holding the moving averages they tend to hold. So it's an interesting situation.
Okay, so I'm going to share your profile on eToro, and we'll just sort of maybe refer to this as we answer some of the randomized questions. But there's a couple of things I'd like to ask about in particular just before we move on. One is the January return figure here, January 2023, 42.16%. I'm not such an avid crypto watcher that I can explain that kind of number. Can you please?
Yeah, no, there was a bit of an uptick, a swing around in terms of we were trending down. We saw it jump up. You see sort of the same thing also in March. And before that, we were trending down in price the previous year. So if you look there, you can see we were gradually just going down lower and lower in price for crypto in general. So I guess you could say around the start of this year was when it sort of started to flip around a bit, started going down less. Um, but I wouldn't say there's any necessarily huge, crazy actions on my part or anything specific. It's just the crypto tends to, it goes, nothing happens, it shoots down or up suddenly, and it looks crazy because you suddenly get a gain of 40% or something like that.
So 42%, just another month in crypto?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, usually you want it to be green. Usually it is, but it could definitely. It's known for the large, huge swings where you're just like, what happened?
Well, as you say, yeah, 2022 there, you can see a year of minus almost 70%. So
Yep.
it's a fair swing back from that. The other point I wanted to ask about is what I just noticed here. You've got 1,000 copiers,
Yep.
but that to the side of that is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Follower 424,500.
Yep. That was surprising to me too, honestly, because I didn't pay attention to that number at all. And then I noticed it sometime during the crypto bull run, and it was at like 400,000. I was like, when the hell did this happen? But yeah, no, it's interesting. I think part of it might be no one can copy you if you're in the US, they can't copy you outside of it. So I figure a lot of people, especially since I make I'm going to be changing my strategy sometime in the next 6 months. I'm working on revising it based on the information I took from the last run, and some improvements I want to make. But I'm assuming since I make it so open source, I have like a 10-page document just going over everything. People want to keep up with what I'm doing and they can't copy me. So instead, they just follow and then they see whatever updates I put out.
Yeah, they can't copy you. Is that ever going to change? Do you know anything about that?
I wish. From what I know from talking to them, it's just regulation difficulties. I'm not sure if it will change, just because the U.S. is so heavily, I guess, restricted in terms of what they can do financially. So then if you open it up so it's external to the US, and then you'd also have to, I think at some point they want to make it so that stocks are copyable as well. They recently added stocks, not recently, at this point, I think it was about 8 months to a year ago, so that people can invest on eToro in the US in stocks, but they haven't added it for the copy traders to do non-crypto and do stocks in general. And part of the reason for that is in order to do that, we would need to get certified. I'm blanking a bit on the exams. I looked them up prior. I think it's one of them is the series. I think it's 76. I'm forgetting the numbers, but there's like the SIE exam, and then there's two other like major financial exams. I was considering doing the two of them, but the third one, I'm holding off on all of them because the third one sort of requires, it's a weird situation where you would have to basically be sponsored by a company and they're in some way, to some extent, taking responsibility for you. So not even financial sponsorship, just saying, hey, we're covering this person. So because eToro doesn't want to do that with their format, which is understandable, it's a lot more, I guess, like laissez-faire, like it's up to the individual to keep track of their stuff and they're going to get involved where they need to, but they're mainly just providing a platform and very trustworthy stats and charts so that you know what you're getting into. So I don't know if they'll really want to push into that unless they can find some way to get around that. But I'm not sure if they can get around those regulations. It's a difficult situation for eToro.
Sure. Okay, we're almost halfway through and we haven't even gone over to our random number generator. So let's get that underway. First number is 35. Investors often say they make many mistakes and learn from them. What was your most recent serious mistake and what have you learned from it?
Sure. So I think this would probably be where most of my losses came from in the last crypto like drop from bull run into bear run. I overestimated the length of the bull run, which I think a lot of people did. It was much shorter than it had been previously in terms of the uptick that it had and everything. Um, and because of that, I switched a lot of my funds over into Cardano more so than I originally had, as I did more research into it, which, as you can see from the losses, that took a very heavy hit and is a very large part of my portfolio. Originally, I had most of that money in Ethereum. And what ended up happening is I did that, I think maybe a couple of weeks to a month just before the bull run ended and it started dropping. So I missed out on all of the increase. So it had a much higher increase than, for example, Ethereum. So instead of my money that was allocated in Ethereum, when it was allocated in Ethereum, maybe it went up 2 or 3 times. If it was in Cardano, it would have went up maybe 10 times. And because it's a smaller market cap, it went down equally as sharp as it went up. So I sort of grabbed the knife with my hands. So I would definitely say that was a major learning point for me in terms of just a specific asset. So in the future, I'm going to not switch things around and I'm going to look out for that sort of situation. It's more of a crypto specific situation because with stocks in general, you're not as likely, I guess, to see that because if it's on the market and it's not a penny stock, it tends to be more within a range. With crypto, it's very big difference with very little size and market cap in terms of the volatility.
Sure. Okay, next question. 31. How would you rate your performance over the last 6 months? And can you factor into that, how active have you been?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the last 6 months, it's a bit of a weird situation because I'm mainly waiting for the crypto, the next halving event to happen and to kick off the portfolio. I would definitely say in terms of keeping track of where we're at in terms of the market just for crypto, it's pretty, I would say like normal performance, nothing really crazy up or down. I am working to upgrade my portfolio, like the approach and everything and the strategy. So that's happening in the background. But with crypto, a lot of what you do during this like time period sort of in between doesn't really have a lot of impact on your portfolio. It's, as you can see, sort of with January when you catch those upswings, and the halving event is the big upswing. In terms of activity, I used to do more updates around. I would do it whenever I did a transact, like if I shifted any percentage of a round or portfolio. And since I haven't been doing a lot of that, what I've been doing instead is every month I've been making sure to do, and it'll probably be like the top post of my portfolio or profile. Just update of where I think the markets are at, some interesting potentially tweets that I think are useful to see, and sort of do a good snapshot of information for the in terms of what's going on in crypto, you can see there. And then in terms of off of eToro, but sort of on it, sometimes I post it on here. And I think there's even a link in that one. I do a newsletter where I post 3 times a week, 3 articles. And then I'm working to get back into doing more deep dive, heavy topic ones, but they're sort of more surface level. 2 of them are sort of news events that are going on. They, at a high level, cover some articles and to take some snippets from them to show you some key points. And then the other article that I do is more of just technical, going into some charts. And then each month I'm also putting out like a ton of, I include tweets in each newsletter posting. So I include all of the tweets from that month that I felt were very interesting and they may have stayed relevant to the end of the month, which can vary because sometimes in a month they've aged sort of like cheese or like something that, or milk that isn't going very well. And sometimes they age like wine and you're like, oh, wow, they made a good call there. So it's interesting to see how they perform over the month.
Well, it's interesting that you should mention how much you factor tweets into your eToro
Yep.
portfolio. That obviously leads me on to ask, what do you make of the marriage between eToro and Twitter? How exciting is that?
It's definitely interesting. I'm curious how it's going to affect, especially crypto with the next bull run. With stocks, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess we'll see. It depends if we're entering a recession or what happens with in terms of the like the workforce and everything else. Because I really feel like the cash tags would be a huge amplifier during when you're seeing a huge uptick in prices. If recessions and bull runs in the traditional markets end up be taking on much shorter sort of cycles, and that happens sort of like how it does with crypto, although obviously not as short. I doubt 4 years would really be the time frame. It'd probably be more like 10, maybe 5 and 5 years or something like that. But I think that it would be a very strong amplifier when it comes to that, because the ability to just reference the chart in the tweets is pretty, I think, impactful for marketing, and then also for just spreading the word across
Yeah.
the social network.
Particularly in America, I would imagine. When you mention eToro to people anecdotally, do they know what you're talking about? Or?
I don't think so. Not super often. eToro is not super well known, and I think part of that was that they didn't really have stocks available in the US. Um, I think abroad they're much more well known, and it's just a matter of you could only do crypto. So until, like I said, I think 8 months ago to a year ago, unless you were into crypto, you weren't going to be using eToro. And then that was right around when stock markets started to take a hit a bit. So really unlucky timing for the addition of stocks to eToro for the US.
Yeah, I see that they've gotten over the regulatory hurdles in New York quite recently, so that's quite a big deal next door to you.
Yeah, no, New York is a giant wall to climb up. They're doing what they can, but it's tough just because of how restricted it is, especially in terms of us interacting internationally. So, and then they're doing all this new stuff with the copy trading and I guess, the less regulated and more you can sort of see what you want, and we're showing the information so you can make an informed decision, which is new because, I mean, in the past that wouldn't have worked because you wouldn't have been able to trust whatever numbers were given. But with the way it is currently, I mean, hopefully we could see some regulation to that and actually, as long as you can prove to some extent that your numbers are this accurate and that you're telling the truth, that you can then allow people to choose the investors with a little more looseness.
Yeah. Next random number, 22. Yoni hires you as a management consultant. Congratulations, Thomas. What is the one area of their business that eToro is under prioritizing, in your view?
That's a tough one. Trying to think. I think they're doing a pretty strong job across everything else. I would say if they could work on the like not necessarily spam. They did a good job of getting rid of the Discord link spam and everything, where there would be random spam comments and you would just have bots. But I think they could probably build that up a bit more, just with some. I do computer programming as my day job, so in terms of that, they could do some pretty easy filtering to just flag things automatically. For example, they could flag it for Discord links or something like that by just adding a regex filter. Regex are regular expressions, so it basically you can basically put it to more easily capture certain patterns of numbers or letters. So you could make it easily capture a website URL by putting in like www. Whatever comes after, and then something afterwards. Or you could do the same with phone numbers and other things that are in a common format. So it'd be nice if they included something like that, because I feel like it would really help clean up the newsfeed. Because it's frustrating when you go and there's a comment and you want to interact with someone, and then it's happening less now because crypto's not shooting up, but it's 100% going to be back. So that would be really nice to see, just to avoid all of that junk and filling up all the comments or all around.
Okay. 31, we've already had. 18. Is there anything you believe in that people often poo-poo?
I typically, unless I'm just throwing in like, I don't know, a small amount of money that I don't care about losing, completely avoid interacting with meme coins in general. Like I don't, on eToro, I have 0 Dogecoin. I have like with crypto, it's a little weird. You have to go and make a wallet to interact with some of these smaller coins. So I've thrown in like $100 here, $50 there, but I don't typically get really involved with them because I feel like they're very hype driven. And even saying that would, I'm sure, upset a lot of people who are very passionate about them. I mean, even just speaking about Twitter, I know Elon Musk really likes Dogecoin. So I feel like that might be it. But at the same time, if you're into finances, I don't think that's a very weird opinion to have. So I guess that would be an opinion that I would probably get in trouble with the general population versus more the financial population.
Okay. 27. This is a question that's come up a few times. Where on the spectrum are you from introversion to extroversion?
That's a good question. I I think it depends on the situation. In terms of if it's a professional situation like this, I'm probably much more extroverted because I feel like I guess it provides I'd say a social framework for the interaction. Um, I'm probably a bit more introverted. I mean, I think it depends largely on the situation, but that I think helps conversations flow much more, fluently.
Okay, well, this conversation has flowed quite fluently. I think it's fair to say, Thomas. Have you any other message for your copiers before we bring the curtain down on this episode?
No, I mean, other than me just pretty much the same things I've been putting out in terms of I'm just continuing to update the strategy, which takes much longer than I would like it to. I've recently been reading a lot of decision-making books, which is both good and bad because unfortunately books take a significant amount of time to work through, and I'm reading through like 5 or 6 of them. So it's been a bit of a struggle to balance that with everything else. But because it's not reading the book's easy, it's actually going through, taking the information, trying to combine it, and then improve decision making. So I should have that out within the next like 5 or 6 months, which I don't know, shouldn't really affect anything too much because the last 6 months are what's really important for prior to the halving event. So should be good.
Okay, well, it's been great to check in with you across the pond over in the US of A. It'd be interesting to see how things develop for eToro there.
Definitely.
And, you know, I guess with your following, you'll be at the forefront of any big moves that get made. So very best of luck, and thanks for checking in with us back at Copytraders Club.
Thanks for having me. Excited to always come back and say hello to everyone.
Okay, good man. See you later. That's all from me. See you on Discord and Facebook. Until next time we meet at Copytraders Club, I wish you many happy returns. Obviously, anything you hear in this podcast is for entertainment only, not financial advice. Do your own research. This is just generic chit-chat. We don't know your individual circumstances, etc., and so forth.